Measure your joy every single day. You cannot change what you do not measure. You will see the same things, the same stresses, the same things that keep you in survival mode keep popping up. If you can control them, great. When it actually comes to things you can't, there are tools on how to ground yourself so that once you have a grounded nervous system, you can change the way you look at those things from that perspective.
We're training ourselves to be addicted to the stress. And then it's a vicious cycle. When we see someone is not stressed, we judge them. Oh, they must be a loser. They're not ambitious. They don't have anything going on in their life. Like, how can they be so happy and aloof all the time, right?
It's the ego, it's the stress that kind of cuts off communication to that higher knowing. You get back to that, your intuition will kick in. You will know the right next step. Imagine a Gujarati guy in gold high tops, driving around the streets of Dallas, passing out bubbles from his DeLorean time machine. What?
I would think I'm in a cartoon.
I don't know that I would have believed it, except for I know exactly who's driving this time machine. He also has a Batmobile and a fire truck, which to me is just so funny. I can't even begin to describe the emotions that I feel when every time I talk to this happy human. We have Loka Pandya on the show today. Welcome, Loka.
Glad to be here. Happy joyful afternoon.
Hello.
I feel like our afternoon is just going to go off the chart here. We're going to have so much fun. We're going to talk about all things that make us feel alive, right, Loka?
Yeah. That's the
Welcome
word right there.
Yeah. Welcome to the show. We live in a world where people can Google you. We'll find out. Tell us what we don't know about you before we get in so people can really understand what they're about to get from you. And I'm going to be specifically unspecific here. What is your mission right now? What is calling you to do the work you're doing that we're going to talk about?
My mission is to spread joy, make people smile, and inspire people to live a more joyful life by taking a structured approach to joy, by cultivating it daily and making joy the metric of their success every single day.
And why are you qualified to do that?
Oh, it's been decades of searching for joy and fulfillment. A lot of my story, there's a lot that's come from tragedy, and through the tragedy has come triumph, which I call joy. And so I've spent over 2 decades going all over the world, talking to gurus and teachers and going to retreats and self-development seminars, really was seeking healing. In the midst of it, I found joy. And when I became the most joyful version of myself and learned actually the principles of cultivating a joyful life, I was like, I can't just keep this to myself. I need to bring it to the world. And so where that started is actually at the age of 13 when I lost my mother to a heart condition. And a year later, I found out that it wasn't exactly the heart condition I thought it was. It was suicide. And I still remember, and I tell people to this day that I realized she did die of a heart condition. She died of a sad heart. Now, that's kind of where it began. 3 years later, I was holding my grandfather, giving him CPR, and he passed away in my arms at the age of 16. 2 years later, I had 2 good friends 3 days before high school graduation pass away in a car wreck. And then 4 years later after that, I had someone that was like a mother figure to me pass away from cancer. So in 9 years, I had a lot of death. Now, this created a lot of trauma and toxic codependency and people pleasing and lack of self-worth and self-love. And a lot of life was the ups and downs of it. But guess what I did? As a South Asian male out there to go succeed, I threw myself into work. And on my hobby off times, I played in toxic relationships, constantly people pleasing in both realms. And that could only last so long. You start hitting these lows, but the combination of all of it starts to hit a couple rock bottoms. But I was going and seeking at this time. As I went and looked, it just kept me above water until one day I realized after a very big breakup of a toxic relationship, I was like, enough is enough. Like, I can't go through this roller coaster of life. And so I took everything that I learned and then continued to learn more and started implementing all the principles of joy and fulfillment and peace. And after a good probably like 4 or 5 years of really digging into that, plus all the years that I had actually worked on it a little bit, I was like, all right, let's go. Let's do this.
Loka, thank you for sharing that. First of all, I'm sorry to hear about the tragedies, from your loss of your mother to your close friends. Your story reminds me of someone that I've found a lot of inspiration in, and his name is Mo Gaudat. He wrote a book called Solve for Happy. So Mo Gaudat was the chief business officer of Google X, and Google X is the moonshot arm of Google. Really successful man until his son, I believe, was at Boston University or Boston College, came home to the Middle East, and from having some abdominal pain to going in for a routine appendectomy, the physicians and the healthcare team made 5 consecutive preventable errors, leading to a 19 or 20-year-old son dying on the operating table from preventable errors. So Mo set out on a journey from an engineer's mindset to solve for happy. And it's a fantastic book. It's one of the first book in this genres that I read. And he ultimately concluded that to move on in life, he needed to find the answer on how to be happy and how to be joyful. Otherwise, he was, I'm paraphrasing, but as good as dead if he continued to mourn the loss of his son. So my question for you, can people learn how to be joyful without experiencing the tragedy? Can they learn from insight and guidance that you're hopefully going to share on today's podcast episode? Or do we have to go through something ourselves like you did or Mo did to be able to learn how to cultivate joy for ourselves?
Great question. So when I look at tragedies like that, there's a concept in neuro-linguistic programming called the pattern interrupt. And so I don't think someone necessarily needs to go through tragedy, but if you're stuck in this pattern of stress and anxiety and focusing on success and things that aren't fulfilling you or making you happy or joyful, many times those are the things that just shock you in a way where you start thinking about it. But you don't need that tragedy. If you start thinking about it today, absolutely today. I wasn't thinking about it back then, but I keep on telling people when you make joy the metric of your success, the rest of your life becomes successful. What does that mean? You just make it a priority. So you won't need tragedy to push you in that direction. Today, you're saying, I'm going to make it a priority, and you start walking that life today.
It sounds simple. It sounds really simple and almost too good to be true. Yet you are a living example of how it absolutely is true. Why do you think people fall into this trap of saying things like, you've got to work hard? It's very easy to fall into being stuck, right? Comparing, wanting to swim upstream, if you will, with all of these emotions of guilt and anxiety and stress and allowing the weight of the world. And I recognize I said allowing the weight of the world to kind of drag us down. But what's that about? What are you finding?
Everything stems from childhood, the way you grow up, what you've been told. I actually tell people, it's like, don't make it it's not your fault. You came in as this child that came to play and love, and you loved yourself. I mean, you ever see a child look in the mirror, especially like a baby, they stop
Right.
and they just are curious. They love looking at themselves like, oh, what's this magnificent being here? Oh my God, you're so cute. You're so smiley. You're amazing. They cry and they smile like seconds later. They are who they are.
Right.
And so what happens later on in life is that the life happens to you. You're told to be a certain way by parents or people around you, coaches, school. There's this construct of the world. It's a beautiful construct that takes you from your childlike joy and starts to tell you who you are and how you should be. And the reason I say beautiful, because I think we're meant to go through that iteration of from child to now this being told who we are, to then going into exploring who are we really. And so when you talk about these people that are kind of stuck in those places, I think it's because of, for example, for me, anxiety and stress all came from needing to overachieve. But I saw that. I saw my immigrant parents come in and they stressed to put food on the table, and then they stressed to make even more money. And so our subconscious minds are picking up on that while we're being told consciously, hey, this is how you need to be. And So we get this beautiful chance to unravel all of that and really find ourselves.
Mm-hmm. It's almost like you can't value something that you don't know you have, or that you don't, you can be in this world and fully conscious and in that state of bliss, but you can't value the light without the darkness, right? You can't value being full if you've never been hungry.
Yeah.
And so it serves, what I hear you say is that it serves a purpose to go through this swimming upstream, if you will, to step out of it and then recognize the glory that we all actually have inside of us, the joy and the happiness.
Yeah. And I tell people everything, and it's tough to look at it from this perspective, but if you can, everything in your life, every person in your life, every event that you go through serves your highest joy if you choose joy. I'm going to say that one more time. Everything that you go through in life serves your highest joy if you decide to choose joy. And what I mean by that is saying, okay, whatever's happening to me right now, okay, how has it served me in my best way? For example, and this is a small issue with my brother's wedding. Okay, a couple years ago, he gets married. And we do this lavish skit and dance and, the whole thing. We're going to make this thing. We're going to blow the socks off of this thing. And I ship a bunch of props to the hotel to be like, all right, I'm going to have them there. The wedding got busy. I didn't get to pick them up from the package room. And finally, the day of the reception where we're going to perform it, I've got to go pick them up. They told me at the front desk it closes at 5 p.m. So I go there at 3:58 p.m. to pick up the packages. The person manning that place is now shutting the doors down. And I said, hey, I've got some packages to pick up. They're like, we're closed. We close at 4 p.m. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like I have this wedding. They're like, we're closed. There's nothing I can do. And now I get down on my knees, joyfully smiling, please, I've got this wedding. It's for my brother. It's going to be amazing. And they're like, I'm off the clock. And they continue to walk. And as soon as I go, I realize I didn't realize this, but I was stressed. I was tired. I turned around. A little my ego came out and said, hey, I need you to get back in there and get me those packages because it's not 4 p.m. right now. And I've got this wedding that I need to take care of. And he just looked at me, smirked, and kept on walking. As soon as he walked out, self-awareness hit. I'm out of my joy. I've treated someone unkindly. Oh my gosh, what an opportunity. Actually, right here, this person is serving my joy, saying, okay, when you're stressed and you're tired and you're trying to serve somebody else, you could possibly treat someone unkindly. I ran back up there. I tapped him on the shoulder. I'm so sorry. No one should ever treat you that way. I'm so sorry. Like, if there's any way else you can help, you don't need to go back there. And he's like, you know what? You can go talk to a manager. He goes off. I take a couple deep breaths, throw on my headphones, dance for 2 or 3 minutes, feel amazing. And then I go around and talk to 7 different people in the hotel. And within like 20 minutes, I had those packages just like that. But I realized that in that moment, that stress and fatigue can take me out of that love and that joy and that kindness. And this beautiful soul brought that in. So now that I know that I'm in that space, I've got a few nervous system regulating tools right there when that happens so that I never come out of that joy and kindness and treat someone that way.
You said something here, and I think people get this mixed up, is when you're doing the inner work, right? There can be a misinterpretation that to step out of joy or to step out of peace or kindness or whatever is undesirable, bad, wrong, right? And I think what you're saying here is that you are going to be human and have human moments. Of course, you're going to be stressed, but the goal isn't to never feel the stress. The goal is to recover back to this place of bliss and joy as quickly as possible because of you cultivating the awareness for it and using that awareness as a sign rather than as a weight to just pull you down to the bottom of the ocean.
Exactly. The thing is, living a joyful life or living as a happy human is being in that state more than being in the lower states. And what I mean by that is stress is here to keep us alive, right? Like if a bear is chasing you, then it's like, hey, stress kicks in, you're going to go, you're going to run, you're going to make sure that you survive. It's a beautiful mechanism for the body to have. But if you're being chased by worries all the time, then it's not actually serving your highest good. Anger, what a beautiful emotion. It's explosive, just like excitement is. There's a joy of every single emotion out there. Even sadness, even grief. Grief is displaced love. And so when you look at all these emotions, as we have the joy of experiencing all of them, and the whole thing is not to stay in that emotion. Experience it, release it, and move on. But if you experience anger and stay there, you become an angry person. If you experience stress and stay there, you become a stressed person. Anxiety, anxious person. And so I use this analogy all the time. It's the Lion King, right? Have y'all seen the Lion King?
Yeah.
I have 2 young children. I've
Yeah.
absolutely seen The Lion King.
Yeah, I love the Lion King. Can you imagine if they're just happy the entire movie, right? Oh, everything's good, everything's good, everything's good, everything's good. No, you have these different emotions that are happening during the movie. When Mufasa dies, I still cry at that scene. But he perseveres. His path to king, his path to joy was through his father's death to find himself again. And so he had the different array of emotions, and he became king, the joyful king. But imagine if he stayed in that emotion, or while we're watching, what if we just stayed in that emotion, kept replaying that, replaying that, replaying that, replaying that? Well, then we become depressed or we become anxious because we stay in that state. The whole thing is to release it, and then get back into joy or love or peace. And then they'll come back again. Great. Okay, right. His anger, release it and continue to go.
Yeah.
That's how you live a happy life. That's how you live a joyful life.
Yeah. I agree. I think a human experience should be the full tapestry of emotions, right?
Yeah.
But what do you say? Look, it's not lost on us that we're sitting here in the United States of America with high-speed internet, the ability to take time and have a conversation and record it. We're at the fringe of humanity, right? The upper fringe of humanity. What do you say to someone who says, that's a great conversation. You have the luxury to step away and think about these things and explore your inner joy? To use your analogy, I'm being chased by a bear 24/7. I'm constantly under stress. And what does that show up like in modern day? I have a boss who is toxic. I have young kids. I live in a high cost of living and I've got to work 2 jobs. I've got a sick parent to take care of. I've got a spouse that doesn't understand me, right? I've got parents that are putting pressure on me. Those are all little examples of things that I'm surmising that people our generation would experience, right? Or my mother-in-law is up my ass all the time or something like that. The proverbial bear that's always chasing us. What do you say to someone? Because I think we have fairly developed thoughts on all of this, and we can understand that it's not we're giving away our power. It's not that thing outside that's taking our joy. But you're not about to say to the man running through the forest that no. You're not stressed because there's a bear chasing you. You're stressed because you're afraid of the bear. Like, no, you're crazy. The bear's going to eat me if I'm no longer stressed. I got to run away from the bear.
Yeah.
What do you say to someone who's like, nah, it's great. It's a cool conversation. I like it. But you guys have the luxury to sit there and think about how you can be happy. I'm still trying to make it. And when I get there and I ascend Maslow's hierarchy, then I can think about this.
Yeah. And I'll tell that person I've been there. I've been there time and time again, where I was in constantly survival mode. And it was exactly that. I was no matter what it is, survival in the US is not necessarily survival everywhere else in the world.
Right.
It is the boss coming down your back. It is the stresses of life, worries coming in. That was me. I was building a hotel hospitality company. I did extremely well. Guess who I was comparing myself to? The people that were doing 10 times better.
Yeah.
The self-worth, the stress, just trying to chase that nonstop. We talked earlier about it was the tragedy at the end, that last toxic relationship that broke me. I had to hit rock bottom in order to actually start to ascend. You know, so there's a quote about rock bottom. They said the best thing about rock bottom is the rock part. Discover the solid bit of you, the part that cannot be broken down any further, the part that you might sentimentally call soul, at our lowest, we find the solid ground of our foundation and build ourselves anew. And so that person out there, I would say that pattern interrupt will come one point or another. Mm-hmm. And you may feel like you don't have that luxury right now. But I tell people when I'm coaching them on joy and saying, okay, how much of that is stuff happening to you versus stuff that you can control? And how do you determine that? I tell people, measure your joy every single day. You cannot change what you do not measure. So, a scale of 1 to 10, what's your joy look like today? 9? Amazing. Cool. What didn't make it a 10? Put that down. What are the things that made it a 9? Great. Write the 3 things that you're grateful for. Right there. Do that over and over and over again. You will see the same things, the same stresses, the same things that keep you in survival mode keep popping up. If you can control them, great. Find the path to do something about them. There's a framework to actually work those thoughts throughout. But when it actually comes to things you can't, there are tools on how to ground yourself, regulate your nervous system when those things are happening, so that once you have a grounded nervous system, you can change the way you look at those things from that perspective.
Yeah, really good. I don't know about their listeners, but I'll speak for Seema and I. If you asked me like where my level of joy is today, I'd say about a 9.9. And what's going to make it a 10 is talking to you every day. So assuming our listeners feel the same way, they want to talk to you every day, I'm going to shut up and I'll give you about 5 seconds to give everyone your phone number. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
1-800 joy.
I totally thought you were going to say his credit card number.
Oh. Yeah, you buying me things too will get me. Like, I'll be a 20. Yeah. No, good
send
stuff.
Me your address. If you're listening, send me your address on Instagram and I will send you something.
Well, listeners, I have to tell you, if you're not on YouTube, you're listening to this on Spotify, Apple, places where you can leave us a review. You should go check us out on YouTube or check out our Instagram. Loka is wearing a shirt. Stand up a little bit, show us the shirt. It says "Choose Joy," and it's an absolutely amazing shirt that we're going to tell you a little bit more about later.
Yeah.
Oh.
I mean, you can't not smile when you look at that shirt. It's really, really empowering. Loka, you mentioned, well, there's so many questions that I want our listeners to hear the answers to. One thing that I wanted to sort of touch on briefly, though, was that when you are in this flight state, this sympathetic nervous system, right, where you're stressed all the time and things, you're fooled into thinking that you have to make these like massive shifts to get this unicorns and leprechauns sort of thing called joy, right? And what I heard you say was that it's actually, the power is in the subtle. It's not the actual external what you're doing, but it's how you're doing it, right? Are you speaking with kindness? Are you speaking with compassion? Are you even changing the way your breath runs through your body? And through that, that's the joy. It's not, whether or not you have the Choose Joy shirt, although that will certainly make you feel differently. But it really, the power lies within, and it's subtle.
Yeah. 100%. 100%. Well, the one thing that I really love, I loved everything that you said, but the one thing that stuck out to me is breath.
Mm-hmm.
That's your joy monitor right there.
Mm-hmm.
Your breath is your joy monitor.
Yeah.
When you see it start to be shallow and short, you'll notice that you're stressed. You might be anxious. Take some deep breaths in. There's this beautiful breath work called the physiological sigh. It's an amazing one that I use all the time. It's very, very simple for anyone that's listening. If you're stressed or anxious, all you do is take a deep inhale through your nose into your lungs. Like it's like a short inhale in and a long exhale through the mouth. You do that 3 to 5 times, you just feel the stress kind of just dissipate. Start regulating your nervous system. immediately. That self-awareness of, oh, I'm stressed, and then you do something to kind of bring you down. Even deep breaths will do that right away.
Mm-hmm.
It's exactly that. It's micro steps. It's micro movements.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like myself, like many other people out there, what we don't realize is we're addicted to stress.
Yeah.
Like
Yes.
it doesn't feel, yeah.
Say that again.
Yeah, we're addicted to stress. We need it. We need it to survive. Feel like we're surviving it. There's science out there that's out there that talks about, like, an alcoholic. If they drink enough alcohol, they can't just quit alcohol.
Right.
They could physically die because their body is now relying on this to survive, and so they have to wean them off.
Yeah.
The same thing with stress. If our body stops feeling stress right away, it starts to freak out a little bit. It starts to be like, oh my gosh, so we need more, we need more, and we need more. So it's these micro steps and micro movements of slowly just bringing it down with these regulation of the nervous system techniques, and just reframing your mind and using gratitude. Oh my gosh, gratitude is one of the biggest things to bring stress down over time. You say it every single day, but you just don't say it, you feel it.
You do.
And when you feel it, whenever you write it down or you say it out loud, you smile and hold that smile for 10, 15, 20 seconds. And all these beautiful chemicals in your body will just start to help you regulate your nervous system even more. You're just training your subconscious mind to be joyful and have less stress.
Dinesh and I are huge fans of gratitude, as the listeners know. We've talked about it. It is such a powerful tool, and I love that you bring that through here in the lens of joy, feeling it, really, not just kind of saying like, oh yeah, I'm kind of grateful for this or whatever, right? But I want you to actually help the listeners better understand you even further, right? So you've had this massive tragedies at such a young age. My kid is almost 13. And so I'm just picturing him in that state, right? Like, not just what that's like, a child at 13. And you grew from there, founded your first company at 17, which you sold for a multi-million-dollar profit. And then experienced concurrently all of these things, right? That you were talking about, the toxic relationships, the overachieving, the people pleasing. And then you've had the shift. Talk to us about the glimpse into your life today. You've recently married, you're blowing bubbles in downtown Dallas. Like, what is happening?
Life is joyful. I have to say, it's amazing. I got married 6 months ago to the joy of my life. My JLP, my joyful life partner, is what I call her. And we had a beautiful marriage. It went from a 25-person wedding to a 200-person wedding. We planned it in 57 days. It was one of the most joyful occasions of my life, to feel the outpouring of love and support from everyone around, and to have people be inspired to be more joyful after the wedding was great. And so that's probably the big achievement of the year. It was amazing. Right now, I'm a keynote speaker on joy. I speak all over the world. I'm in the process of creating joy workshops and joy retreats. But the thing I'm most excited about is I'm creating a social media-like platform that's just joy focused. And it's going to be engaging to where people can come there, and people that are looking for joy and connect with people that want to be living joyful lives to be there. But then you'll have all the tools in that community as well to live that joyful life. It's completely free, just for people just to get together on it, and then creating a system of a structured step-by-step approach where people can actually go in there daily to live a more joyful life. And so those are the main things that are happening. The day-to-day, it's I wake up, I meditate for anywhere from 15 minutes to an hour. I do a little bit of breath work, about like 10 minutes, 10 or 15 minutes. Then I'll dance for 3 to 5 minutes. And my shower is a body gratitude ritual that I have every morning. And that's some of that time of the day is probably the most joyous that I
Mhm.
feel. Just being grateful for my body, and I feel this bliss in my chest as I'm listening to like this shamanic music, and it's an amazing experience. And then when I get done, my joyful life partner is up, and we'll sing and dance for 2 to 5 minutes, and then off to creating. So
How do you
it's a
pick the
little.
music?
What's that?
How do you pick the music?
I have 37 different playlists, and so it's what's the joyful music for the day? And sometimes it's like hip hop. We're going like move, get out the way, or it's like this, it's like shamanic sort of like in there, like it's just whatever you're feeling at
Yeah.
that moment. I used to be like, oh, I'm going to continue to listen to this, and I'm like, no. And sometimes it's just silence, and so it's tapping in that moment and saying, what does this morning feel like to me? Does it feel like an energetic let's go, or does it feel like a peaceful calm? It reminds me of what joy can look like. Joy can be exciting and dancing around and having fun, or joy can be meditating. Joy can be reading a book, having a cup of coffee. That it's whatever music you want to pick for the day. It's just like what kind of joy do you want to engage in for the day?
Yeah. We all have those activities that, it's personal for each of us, but they're activities that when we do, we feel recharged versus drained, right? I think that's
Yeah.
the simplest way I can explain it. And if I went around and I looked at a slice of our population, which similar to us, in South Asian, middle life, middle adulthood, whether we have kids or not, professionals, educated, things like that. I looked at their calendars or I looked at their to-do lists. Would I find deliberate, intentional scheduling or listing of those activities that put us in higher vibrations, or are those clearly omitted?
It's so interesting you bring this up, because just about a week and a half ago, I was talking to my sister who has three amazing kids here in Dallas, and she went to this one of these retreats. It was a self-development retreat, emotional release, and she's like, one thing I realized after the retreat. She's like, I have this to-do list every day. She just knocks everything out. She's knocking everything out. She's like, I haven't been on my to-do list for over a decade. And I'm like, wow. And what does that look like?
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, getting a massage, self-care, like really scheduling in the time instead of tactically scheduling time with the people
Right.
that fill my cup up. And so I've seen that most people, especially South Asians right now, have forgotten to put themselves on their to-do list. And so much so, a lot of them have forgotten what actually brings them joy.
Mm-hmm.
I quit drinking I on and off bouts, because the more spiritual I got, the more my body didn't resonate with me. I quit about 5 years ago. But what I realized is when I was drinking, when I talked to people like, oh, let's hang out, that's what it was. That was fun. And don't get me wrong, drinking can be fun, but you pay for fun things,
Right.
like that.
Right.
Where joy, it's you're still feeling good the morning after. And so a lot of times I think people, what they'll need help with, not only putting themselves on the list, but what do they want to do?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And what I tell people is go back to childhood. What did you enjoy as a child? Were you outside playing outside a lot? Were you building Legos? Were you painting? Were you singing? Were you dancing? Go back to those things, because when you are putting yourself back on that list, that's what you want to put on there. And if
Mm-hmm.
it's Legos, get some crafts together. If you played outside, schedule in nature walks. But really, childhood has all the answers of what you really, really makes you feel joyful, and the type of people that you enjoyed during childhood. Find those similar people in today's life.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. In fact, I would invite our listeners that if you, in the depths of your soul, think that you're a busy person, you're a person making it happen, I would invite you to take 5 minutes on a Friday afternoon and try to get familiar with things that you are you want to be curious about, whatever it might be, whether it's collecting stamps, learning how to dance, um, what would it be like to play in a basketball league? Just get curious about what you are no longer curious about. Because in the state, and I think we touched on it earlier, in the state where we're going from to-do list item to item, we're training ourselves to be addicted to the stress. And then it's a vicious cycle. When we see someone is not stressed, we judge them. Oh, they must be a loser. They're not ambitious. They're not
Yeah.
they don't have anything going on in their life. Like, how can they be so happy and aloof all the time, right? But I'll be perfectly transparent. This podcast is something that we schedule weeks and months in advance sometimes, right? And it's a lot of work, but it's something that we, Seema and I, do for ourselves. And maybe it's more stress for Seema because she has to put up with me, but it's something that fills my cup up. And just because it's something that's filling your cup up is not mutually exclusive with being not producing an income or not productive. You can have a lot of fun building massive wealth and you can fill your cup up at the same time. And that, I think that is the holy grail, where you're having fun doing the things that actually bring you, prosperity and things like that. That is where success is.
It's the things that fulfill us that you can build that wealth. I mean, I tell people my mantra in the morning is I'm the frequency of joy and abundance. I'm the frequency of joy and abundance. I'm the frequency of joy and abundance. Now, abundance in what? Everything. Love, prosperity, wealth, joy, peace. Like, you just don't want a little joy, you don't want a little happiness, you want a lot of it. And when you lean into that world, you start to figure out what fulfills you. And then it's exactly what you said. Building a business is like building Legos. If you like building Legos, cool. There's a fun, I call it fun fulfillment, right? When you find your fun fulfillment, it leads to your fulfillment. Because people are like, I don't know what fulfills me. I was like, just go back to what's fun for you. That's not drinking, right? Like, what's fun for you? What are the things that you enjoy? Fun fulfillment leads to fulfillment. You'll find the path. Literally, I was on a conversation about an hour ago, actually no, an hour and a half ago, right before this, and we were talking about that. He's like, you know what? The reflection I get from you, Loka, is that you're not focused on any of the money on anything right now. You're just going out there and you're doing it. And I've seen you over like the last 6 months, and I'm seeing how that secondary piece of the money and the wealth and what's happening is there. But what's coming out of you is just genuine joy. And you're on this mission. I'm like, it's exactly that. When you get mission oriented and you get in there and saying, this is what I want to bring to the world, not only yourself will find the creativity to figure out how to build the wealth from that. And it's completely, not even completely okay. It's amazing to build wealth from what you're fulfilled with. Other people will feel that. Yeah. And they will come around you and they say, yeah, let's do this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because it's a transfer of energy, right? Wealth is just energy.
Yeah.
And so when you are attuned to an abundant energy, guess what follows, right? It's just science in terms of we like to have frequencies match up. And I love that you really lead with that. And, I keep thinking about this child, version that then kind of gets deprogrammed or programmed, if you will. And I'm thinking about last night, the kids wanted to watch a movie, and at the same time, ran late a little bit. It's right now it's darker than usual outside compared to the summer. And they insist on sitting on opposite ends of our table instead of next to each other, but they talk, right? And they're having fun, and Manish and I are done we're already done eating. We've cleaned up, like they're still there. And I looked at them and I was like, guys, I love that you're having fun, but if you want to watch the movie, you need to eat. And as I'm here, I'm kind of having this metacognitive moment of like, whoa. What if we said, choose how you want to have that joy? Do you want the joy of the movie and snuggling together? Or do you want the joy of the conversation? Because we have school tomorrow, we may not be able to do both. but just
Yeah.
pick which one, right? Both are joyful. Talking while having dinner, that's not a waste of time, and you're not costing us anything, right? Like just sort of reflections that are, quite frankly, listeners, unfiltered. Congratulations, you have a glimpse inside my head. But I think we do this all the time to ourselves, to the children around us, to the people around us. It becomes so steeped in our way of thinking. And the only way out is to really, as you say, use joy as a metric.
Yeah.
I mean, even to the point where now I'm thinking we have family meetings every month and we have family goals, right? And usually it's about like, how aware are we? How quick are we to do? We have these things. Let's make joy one of our family goals. Let's like make it really centric, whether that's turning on music or just allowing ourselves to make somebody laugh instead of get upset with them. Or there's 1,000 different ways to do that. And I love that you're really, really making something, again, so leprechauns and unicorns, to quote Stanley from The Office, you're making it so concrete. You're making it so accessible, so tangible. Anyone can choose to have that at any moment.
Yeah, absolutely. Just it's a priority and make it a metric, you know. I love that you're thinking about bringing it into the family. You want to bring in the family. And so you can laugh, you can smile, you can spend time together. But if everyone's measuring their joy and then as a family where they feel like the joy is, can you imagine, even if there's a family out there that if they're saying, hey, we're going to get together and measure our joy, oh, it's at a 2? Great. Hey, if next year it's a 3, we've made progress.
Mm-hmm.
Simple, micro steps, just measure it. And I'm telling you, I don't know the science behind it, but when you continue to write where your joy is and what's taking you into your joy and what's taking you out of your joy, just being aware of that automatically starts making your brain think differently. Because it's like, oh, I see what's taking me out of my joy. Oh, what's taking me in my joy. You do that for 10 days, even 7 days, you'll automatically just start living a little bit more joyfully as long as you continue to put that gratitude. If you keep on writing, oh, this will take me out of my joy, and this is it's a 1, and this is what brought it to where it's not a 0, and I don't have any gratitude. That gratitude piece gets you into that higher vibration, that higher frequency, and something in your brain starts to just work things out on how to actually start living more joyfully. And the creativity and the solution stuff will just come out. I've seen this time and time and time again with people. When they write this down in this sequence, just they'll call me up and be like, oh, Loka, I got the answer. I didn't know how it was going to be like this. This is everything that's happening to me, but this makes sense. I'm going to do this and this and this. I'm like, yes. Sorry. Yeah, I just excited.
So I could not agree more. I know Dinesh and I have had many conversations about this. You know what to do, right? Your innate state of being, as you said, is joy, bliss, openness, love, curiosity. It's the ego, it's the stress that kind of cuts off communication to that higher knowing. And when you get back to that, your intuition will kick in. You will know the right next step. You will know, and oftentimes it's really more simple than you maybe wanted to make it out to be.
The thing that I want everybody listening to know is that you have everything you need within you. You absolutely do. There was a very long time in my life where I just kept thinking I have to reach outside of myself. No, if you just cultivate a life where you're taking the steps, even if it's 5 minutes a day, whether it's meditation, breath work, putting your feet in the grass, dancing a little bit, something little to get you on that path of joy, those things will start coming from within you and they'll start coming out, especially when you journal.
What's the cost of not prioritizing these types of things as early as we can in life? And more specifically, I should say before that, is how did we get here? I know a decent amount of children because I have kids and they have friends, thankfully. And most of them are pretty joyful. And somewhere along the line, I don't know when, 15, 8, 25, 35, somewhere along the line, we stop prioritizing our own joy and we start prioritizing structure, schedules, getting to school on time. For example, I think even Seema mentioned, like, we got school tomorrow, so we got to have constraints. And I think that's right. I think in any society, you've got to have constraints, you've got to have boundaries, you have to make trade-offs between what's important for you in the future and what you want to do today. How did we get here to that we're having this conversation about joy? Because I think we all agree it's innate, and somewhere along the lines we forgot about it. And what is the cost of continuing to delay and put it off and ignore the conversation the three of us are having as that's a bit foo-foo for us, for me. I'm building a company. I'm the head of surgery for planet Mars. And I got a lot of surgeries to take care of, and I've got a lot of residents coming in, and the hospital has demands. Guys, I'll do joy when I'm 65. But for now, leave me alone. What's the cost?
Yeah. Well, it's just like saying, hey, I'll take care of my health at 65. And you see those people out in the world, when you look at the people that said, I'm going to take care of my health at 65, it's not only that, all right, they're having to pour more money into it, their quality of life and fulfillment has gone down significantly. Their body has been beaten to a pulp. And the same thing happens with our mental health, even worse, because our mental health directly affects our physical health. And so when we talk about the costs, we talk about, I've seen people where they've lost relationships, they've lost jobs, they've when they're going through the world, there's a level of loneliness that could be the cost, right? That you become lonely because when you are focused in a way to where you're stressed about building something, or just stressed or anxious and not actually tackling this, it affects your mind, it affects your body, it affects your spirit completely. And to answer how we got there, I think you're exactly right, where when it comes from children to when did things switch, I believe it's a middle school, high school thing. Because up until then, yes, you want kids to get good grades, these things are going to happen, but they don't matter. They matter, but once they hit high school, they matter. And so now the pressure is on at that point, and they're pushing themselves to that point. But also when you're in that transition phase, a lot of people are being told how they should be, whether it's from peers, bullies, whatever it is, all that stuff starts to come. And so how we got here is, once again, comes back to our upbringing and how we leaned into what people told us that we should be or how we should be. And at some point, whether it's through tragedy or a wake-up call or a happy human podcast, right? It's like, oh wait, actually I should be happy. Boom, like, all right, I listen to that happy human podcast, and boom, I want to make this a priority. You get there, but the cost is huge. The cost is how often you smile, how often you laugh, how often you're feeling that bliss and joy every single day. And quite often I see the cost is community and family is what I've seen huge. You lose a lot of that.
I would actually go a step further. I think those costs, a lot of people might tend to discount them. Like, my family can wait, my health could wait, all those things. But I would actually go further. From what I've noticed is grinding it out and working very hard as an angry person can get you very far. But that distance pales in comparison what you can do when you're building authentic relationships, because you're showing up as who you are. You're giving permission for people to be themselves around you, and you're using hope and optimism as the voltage potential for action, right? Because as human beings, if something is totally useless, like you cannot fly, right? You know for a fact that if you jump off a mountain, you won't fly. You're not going to do it, right? But the moment, and this goes back to who was the guy who broke the 4-minute mile? The moment he broke like 4 or 5 minute mile, everyone thought, okay, it's possible. Now let me try a little more. And I think that for anyone who's extremely successful, if you're not prioritizing this, you're capping your success at about 10% of its potential. Because as I think you can see from Loka here, after even selling, and the guy's got a bag, he's got paper, right? He's sold it for multi-million dollars, his first company. But I'm willing to bet, I'm going to put real money on this later on, but I'm willing to bet that his most important success, or his bigger success, is still in the future. And you can just tell from looking at him, you can just tell how he's showing up, that it's going to be as a direct result of the fact that he's using joy, peace, and freedom as his compass, not, you know, anger, fear, and scarcity, I should say.
Yeah, you know what? You brought that sledgehammer right back. I mean, way to ground it in, because you're exactly right. When you are in that joy, that peace, that freedom, that all creates an environment of collaboration, authentic, genuine collaboration, where
Right.
people automatically are attracted. What has happened actually in my life is that people want me to make money. People are coming and saying, how can I help you make money? Because I just like you. I like being around you. I like who you are. I like what you stand for. I like the type of person that you're at. You're the type of person that should be making more money in this world. And so when you get into that true authentic self and that what we call higher vibration state, but even just better emotional state, when you stay in that as that happy human or that joyful being, collaboration starts to come in left and right, and it may not happen immediately. A lot of times I've seen it happen immediately, but continue to stay that course, because there's this transition period where that the people that are meant to fall out of your life, that you're not meant to collaborate from, because if you're working from a place of fear and stress and anger, that's the environment that's been created around you. But as you start to shift, that stuff will start to fall away a little bit. And
Right.
and as it starts to fall away, these other parts start to fall in to help you become the biggest, best, greatest, most successful version of yourself.
Yeah.
And I appreciate you saying that, but I do feel like my greatest success is heading forward, and not because of what I'm doing. It's
Yeah.
because of who I'm being and who that's calling in.
Mm.
Uh, you may have heard this before, but we're not human doings, we're human beings. But we're
Yeah.
so in this world of do, and do is do. There's this whole framework that you just gotta shift your mindset from. It's what is it? It's do have be, right? Most of us are
Mm-hmm.
living in do have be. You do the things to have the things to be a certain way. You do the work to have the money to have things, cars and houses, to be happy or be joyful. Where the other way is be do have. You be joyful. You've cultivated a life to be joyful, be happy, and then you're doing things while you are in this state, and then you have things. But your being isn't based on what you're doing and what you're having. You're just being. And
Mhm.
it's a much more fulfilling life to live, uh, if you live by that way and continue to cultivate joy and cultivate happiness in your life.
Such a powerful statement and such a powerful reversal of a paradigm that, quite frankly, just doesn't work as well as we want to believe it does. So good. You've, through the course of this conversation, touched on so many practical strategies, ways to really bring this home and make it accessible despite, like, we know the wife, the husband, the kids, the parents, the mortgage, the boss, the subordinates who are not quite getting things done the way you want them to get them done, exactly the way you want them done, like all of those things, right? We're living in this. If you could pick 3 things to really amp up the joy, what would they be?
All right. The one big thing that I've already touched upon is track your joy every single day, whatever that looks like. Even if it's the number, the way to do it properly is scale of 1 to 10, what's my joy? If it's not a 10, what took you out of your joy? It just has to be a line or two. All right. What was the thing that made it not a 0? 3 things you're grateful for. If that's too much, just write down what it was that day. Simple. 8, 7, 10, whatever that is. You know kind of where you're at. All right. Once that's done, step number 1. Step number 2 is think about the things that brought you joy, something that you enjoy doing by yourself, absolutely by yourself. It could be singing, dancing, crafting, drawing, writing. Enjoy what you did as a child, and then sprinkle that into your day at least 3 to 5 minutes each day throughout the day. Just 1 minute, 2 minutes of each, and then dig into a nervous system regulation practice that helps. It could be breath work, it could be meditation, it could be putting your feet in the grass, it could be taking a shower. So anytime that you feel stressed or anxious, you can turn to this tool. Showering, by the way, is amazing. It's one of my favorite grounding tools out there. And so once again, track your joy. Find the one thing that you feel that brings you joy that you can do, and then just one technique out there that can help you regulate your nervous system. And there's several out there. You can go on my page on Instagram. You can go just Google grounding techniques out there. If you just do 5 minutes of grounding, 5 minutes of joy, and track your joy every single day, then you'll start to see your world transform immensely, even after a week. But if you see yourself in a year, you'll be a completely different person. This whole thing maybe takes you 15 minutes each day.
I love that. It's a 15-minute power-packed, practice that you can do anytime, anywhere, literally. And I love that you're really bringing it home, because it is rooted in a lot of science, and yet it's still accessible. It's still, as Dinesh puts it,
Yes.
It is costing you your own success
Yes.
to not practice this. So I love that you're out there on this mission to spread it. This is kind of one of those things that compound interest, right? You spread it to one person, and then the other person spreads it, and the other person spreads it. It's so easy to fall into, this is the circumstances, right? This is how old I am. I haven't taken care of myself up until now. My kids won't listen. I have an ex-spouse that is out to get me. Here's who's won the presidential, whatever. Here's who's running the House or the Senate. And I don't, and taking that power back is just, I don't even know if there's any words for it. So thank you for coming on and sharing that with us.
Yeah. And one last thought that just really came in my head, that with everything happening around, this is happening with the family, this will happen in the election, this happening, this, and if you get stuck in there, what will really shift you out of there is that gratitude practice. Mm-hmm. If you do the gratitude practice every single day where you feel that gratitude, over time, it'll start shifting your mind to a positive mindset and saying, hey, okay, this isn't the end, because I am finding things that are grateful for. This isn't the worst thing. I am finding things that I'm grateful for in your life. And your subconscious mind and even your reticulating activating system that looks for things. It's a thing in your brain that continues to see patterns out there. If that pattern of gratitude starts to come in where you start consciously doing it, it starts happening from a subconscious level. So going back to those three things, right, that measuring your joy, that gratitude piece is huge. If you do anything for the next 365 days, do your gratitude practice, feel it, write it down if you can. If not, just say it out loud, but feel it within yourself every single day for the next year and see your life change.
I have to put my doctor hat on here and say that actually, I don't have the studies, but that in and of itself is so restorative for your health, right? I know there's studies out there. I just don't have them at my fingertips to give you the numbers, but that is just so healing. It's so restorative. There's all these rates of disease, right? Dis-ease creates disease. And so going back to gratitude, breath work, and really being expansive physically in your body, of feeling it, is just preventive almost. And it is preventive in nature for a lot of the things that we don't want to experience.
Yeah. Especially for challenges. That guy at my brother's wedding, I'm still grateful for him this day. Today. I'm like, wow, what a gift. So it's not only just great for the things that we have, but the challenges that we have to help say this is actually reorienting us for our highest joy, for our highest good. And I'll go far as to say that in 2019, after doing all the work and figuring everything out, I realized my mother's death was one of the best things that's ever happened to me. Not because she passed, right? But the gratitude of the time that we had together, gratitude of what it brought forward, and to make me realize that our path to joy many times is through those challenges. Yeah. And that was a gift that was given to me to live the most joyful life myself, because I know that if that didn't happen, I would have been in that rat race. And many people could say, hey, well, maybe you would have thought differently. I was like, no. No, I know there's always a possibility, Yeah. But that thing shifted me, and having gratitude for that, there's no power there. There's just love for her in the event that happened, to know that, hey, it's what led me to become this person to where I can bring more joy to the world.
Adversity and joy are not mutually exclusive. You can find joy in difficulty and the hard that comes our way. And I think one thing that you both just said that really resonated with me is it relates to some of the advice I got a long time ago, which was, before you are a successful tech startup or a successful podcaster, just be happy first. Prioritize being happy, and then be a millionaire. Don't be a millionaire and be unhappy, but be just focus on being happy first, because a lot of times we get there and we think the thing is going to make us happy. But as we all know, someone could be living on $1 a day and be completely happy, and someone can have billions of dollars in the bank and be completely unhappy, right? So it's not the thing that you're going to achieve that's going to make you happy. Learn how to be happy first. Learn how to be joyful first. Like get the easy stuff out of the way, right? Which is remembering how to be playful, remembering how to have gratitude for the things you have, remembering what a life of joy, peace, and freedom looks like, before you have a life full of big bank accounts, fancy cars, and pool boys coming in and out of your house, right? Loka, I was so excited to hear you come on, or you were coming on the podcast, because my good friend, Dr. Kian Vu, had introduced me to you, years ago. And if you think we've had a lot of joy and fun on this podcast so far, we're now getting to the most joyful part of our podcast, which is a wrap up. We've talked a lot about joy, we've talked a lot about peace, and a lot of that awareness of how we can guide our lives. But you have a lot of lived experience. Tell us one thing that, if a listener was listening to this podcast, that they can do right away and feel the immediate benefit of having a little bit better life in short order.
The one thing to just feel a little bit better right here is close your eyes and smile for 30 seconds. And it may seem long, but smile for 30 seconds and just feel your state change immediately. And while you're smiling, think of people that bring you joy. Think about joyful times that you had in your life. Just 30 seconds to just be in joy. Feel joy and smile.
I just love everything about you. We have a game called Ask It Forward. I know you're familiar with this game, but for listeners, a guest previous to Loka has left a question for him. Loka, you get to answer it, but then also ask forward another question with blinders on. And I can't wait to hear what your question is. I want to have you answer Dr. Sonia Kotadia's question. She's a therapist focusing on perfectionism in marriage and motherhood, focusing on overachieving and people pleasing and all of those things that tend to come with becoming a parent. What is a habit you had to unlearn to be where you are today?
The habit I had to unlearn is people pleasing. That's where my self-worth and my self-value was just rooted. I just felt like, hey, this is the habit that's going to keep me, it's going to take me to the finish line. And so unlearning that was one of the biggest things to give me freedom, actually, to realize that I don't need to be pulled in every direction by myself.
And is that why you get in the fire truck and the Batmobile and the DeLorean time machine?
I get in those because my inner child came out when I became an adult, and I said, okay, let's see. I want a Ferrari or a Lamborghini? No, I want a DeLorean time machine. I want a Batmobile because it brings me joy and it'll bring other people joy. And like I said, blowing bubbles.
I love that. And I love that you're not worried about pleasing people as they look at you with your gold high tops, passing out bubbles.
Yeah, yeah. Trust me, I've gotten some interesting looks.
I'm sure.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
sure.
yeah. And I'm
But
just like, oh, they're probably just interested in me.
they're wondering where their time machine is.
Yes, exactly.
So good. So I want to know, and the listeners want to know, what is your question of the next guest?
So there's a quote by Ingrid Fattel Lee. She speaks on joy as well. She talks about not dressing for the job you want, but dressing for the joy that you want. And so, what I'd like to know is if you're a superhero, what is the joy that you're wearing look like when you're in normal everyday clothes? And what does your joyful superhero costume look like? So you have two outfits that I want to know what it looks like if you're dressed in your joy in both of those.
I immediately am going to like glitter. It's not what I normally wear at all, nor is it something that I think I would pick out, but that's what popped into my head. Pink
Yeah,
glitter.
that's it. That's it.
All right.
So good.
That's a great question. I'm going to have to think about it. Loka, what we like to do is give you the opportunity to share a cause or an organization that's near and dear to your heart. Allows it to raise awareness of things that our guests are interested in, allows us to make a contribution on behalf of you as a way of saying thank you to the organization, and in some small way allows everyone who, even if they don't listen to the podcast, because we've gotten a lot of wisdom from you, you've benefited from coming on the podcast, our guests, our listeners listening get a lot of benefit, but there are people out there who might not even know the podcast exists, and by making a contribution on your behalf, we can make an impact far greater than what we're doing here. So I'll give you a chance to share with us the organization that we can make a contribution to as a way of saying a massive, joyful thank you.
Love that. Love that. The organization's called Orphan Sponsorship International.
Okay.
Orphan Sponsorship International, a beautiful organization. They've got some orphanages in Sri Lanka and in India, and even saved a disabled children's orphanage that was going to be closed down in Bulgaria, where there was physically and mentally disabled children there that were going to have nowhere to go. Yeah. And when they get these children sponsored, 100% of the donor's money goes straight to the child. Mm-hmm. And so they've got another method to figure out how to take care of the administration, things like that, where they're donating to the organization directly. But if someone sponsors a child, every penny goes to that child. And so the founder's just probably one of the best humans on the face of the planet that I know. Wow. His name is Nick, and so beautiful organization.
Awesome. Nick, the founder of Orphan Sponsorship International, we're happy to support you as a way of thanking Loka for coming on here and, quite frankly, sprinkling joy all over.
It's been so fun.
Yes. And you know, the thing that's coming to mind for me as you share that, Loka, is every single one of our guests that has come on, they are happy humans and wildly successful, but generosity is a really common core of, it's a fiber of who they're being, right? And so I might even offer, you want some joy in your life? Mm-hmm. Go volunteer. Yeah. I mean, if what you can do immediately is to write a check, there are not enough dollars right now that are being spent on really amazing causes. Go support, even if it's $5. Yeah. And, you know, if you can, take a half day, take an hour out of your time to go volunteer, to go even to one of these. When I was practicing dentistry, I would go to a lot of these assisted living facilities. And most of my job was not the surgeries. It wasn't the doctoring. It was, tell me how your day is going. And, you know, it doesn't take much. So I love that you're making generosity a part of who you are, and it just shines through.
I love this point that you brought up because it reminds me in some of my darkest days. The one thing I started to do when I was depressed is to go volunteer. And that just, within a few weeks, just everything started to shift, and you got what you gave out. And I'm telling you, if you're sad out there, go volunteer for a place that needs food, needs shelter, needs anything out there.
Yeah, I mean, it's documented, the helper's high. I mean, if you just think about it in real practical terms, if you have $5 and you go spend it on yourself, like what's the most that you can buy for yourself with $5? Let's call it a coffee or an ice cream or something like that. Compare that to giving it to someone who really needs it, or buying a child an ice cream, the same ice cream, buying it for a child will bring you significantly more joy than eating the ice cream yourself. Trust me on that.
Yeah. Yes. Love that. Love that. Love that.
Oh my goodness. Tell us, you mentioned some of the things that you're working on, but Dinesh, you wanted to mention the t-shirts. I want to make sure we give our listeners an in on the game. But Loka, tell us where listeners can buy your t-shirt, and any other offerings you want to leave for the guests, ways to connect with you, all the good things.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. So we're on a mission to spread joy. We're selling these shirts. It says choose joy on the front. But the most beautiful message about these shirts is the back. It says, "Dear person behind me, you deserve an immense amount of joy today. Much love, the person in front of you." And it's been amazing to see the connections people have made, and just how many people out there right now that need to hear that message that's being read. And you can go to madeyousmile.co. That's madeyousmile.co to help in the mission of spreading joy. The things I'm working on are still kind of in the works, but the best thing you can do is just come to my page, Loka Pandya on Instagram. It's LOKAPANDYA. See if anything there resonates with you to help you to live a more joyful life, because the way that you can help me in any way or contribute is by helping yourself. Because the more joyful you become, the more joyful the world becomes. Right. And if something resonates with you, share that message, because all of us together, we're going to get this world to become a more joyful place.
Talking about the shirts, I have a wacky idea if you want to come along with me.
I love wacky ideas.
Yeah, let's have some fun. Listeners, we'll make you a deal, okay? I'm looking at our Apple podcast right now, and we have 119 five-star reviews. That means 119 people listened to the show and felt called to leave a review for us, which we really appreciate. When this episode airs, if you like what you heard, go leave us a review, and in the review, use the word joy, and we'll look from 119. For everyone that leaves us a review with the word joy, and you DM us on Instagram, either one of us, Loka, Seema, myself, or our Happy and Human podcast, we will get your address and send you one of these shirts. How's that sound, Loka?
That sounds amazing. That sounds fun, actually.
Yeah, a lot of fun. Let's see how many of these shirts we can get out there.